Hello and welcome to Tiger Pick Ems on MUTV 23. I'm Jack McGrath, joined by JJ Angelo and Shane Palma. Well, we're here to talk about some college football. JJ and Shane, what are your highlights from last week? Let's start with JJ.
Last week we got some good games, some top 10 matchups, Notre Dame, Georgia. Then we had Michigan, Wisconsin. Wisconsin with the big win, big upset over Michigan. Those are highlights for me. Super cool to see LSU's offense light it up, and I think Shane has more to say about that.
Listen, I don't want to get too deep into it since I know SEC competition and rivalries run a little deep, but Joe Burrow, I really think that Joe Burrow has a chance to win the Heisman this year. You look at Trevor Lawrence, Tua, Jalen Hurts, all on great offenses, great teams, but just looking at his stat line, Joe Burrow, over 1,500 passing yards already this year, 17 touchdowns to 2 interceptions. He has the third highest QBR in all of college with a 93.2, and this team is only getting better, 4-0 right now. And when you look at just another game that was probably the game of the year so far with Washington State and UCLA, you had Anthony Gordon, just 9 touchdowns in the air. That's insane. That's honestly a remarkable performance, but couldn't get it done. UCLA won by 4, 67-63. And he had the costly fumble to end the game after throwing 2 picks. So definitely a pretty big night for college football all around.
Yes, and then a big win for the Missouri Tigers. They knocked off South Carolina by a score of 34-14. Kelly Bryant started slow in the first half, but wound up throwing for 227 yards and 2 touchdowns. He was 19-33 on the day. Now we're going to move into predictions for this week. First off, number 12 ranked Penn State versus Maryland. JJ, what are your thoughts?
Both teams coming off real tough games their last weeks. They're both coming off buys this week. I think you'll see the rust early for both teams, but these are teams that put up 79 points each their first week. Don't be surprised if this one's in the 40s. I think Maryland's going to pull it off. They're historically good at their own house. They're playing in front of their home crowd on Friday night. I see Maryland with the upset over Penn State.
I have to disagree with you there, JJ. I think that after a rough start to the season, Maryland's been unranked after being ranked for last year, and Penn State has some playmakers. I know, especially on my fantasy team, KJ Hamler, wide receiver, and tight end Pat Freiermuth. I expect them to both have big games, as Sean Clifford, their quarterback, yet to throw an interception this year. No takeaways by any defense against Sean Clifford. So I have Penn State in this one, 48-19.
Both teams coming off a bye this week. I do also have Maryland pulling off the upset, though. Going in to Maryland, big home game for the Terrapins. All right, moving on now. We're going to go to Notre Dame and Virginia. Notre Dame coming off that loss against Georgia. JJ, thoughts?
Yeah, exactly. It was a loss. I think Notre Dame's going to bounce back. They really showed what kind of team they were. They kept it close with an excellent Georgia team, Georgia team that Mike made the playoffs. I think Virginia's been good. They've been a little shaky. They had a close game against Old Dominion last week. I think Notre Dame's going to make a statement. They're going to bounce back. I say keep an eye out for Chase Claypool, wide receiver. He was targeted a lot last week. I think against a lesser Virginia defense than Georgia, he's going to have a big game.
I'm going to go with you there on that one too, JJ. I think Notre Dame will definitely bounce back after their loss to Georgia. Virginia may be 4-0, but I can't see their defense sustaining against this Notre Dame offense. Their defense has, they haven't let up more than 24 points in their first 4 weeks, but against Notre Dame, I just can't see this happening. So I have Notre Dame beating Virginia 28-20.
I also have Notre Dame in this top 25 matchup. I think they're going to come back strong after that Georgia loss. Next up is USC at Washington. USC coming off a big win versus Utah, looking to carry that momentum into this game. JJ.
Exactly. They did have a big win, but they did lose now their second-string quarterback to injury. They're down to their third string. He did have a big game against Utah, but against a relatively untested Utah team. They're matching up against a Washington team that has a great quarterback in a transfer, Jacob Eason. I think Jacob Eason's going to have a big game, and I think USC's I think their young roster is going to show this game. They're going up against a Washington team with a lot of depth, and I think that's going to show. I got Washington in this one.
I have Washington in this one too, but don't count out Matt Fink, quarterback for USC. He definitely had a great game last week. Although the defense may have been untested, 350 yards with 3 touchdowns. He definitely could light it up through the air if he wanted to, but I also have Washington taking down USC 36-30.
I differ a little bit here. I have USC winning this game, carrying that momentum that we talked about earlier. I think they will pull this one off. Next up, we have Ole Miss facing off against one of the best teams in the nation, if not the best team in the nation, Alabama. Let's start with Shane this time. Shane, what do you think about this game?
You know what? Anytime you look at Alabama in a schedule, you just think, does the other team really have a chance? I mean, Tua had 5 passing touchdowns last week. Not a lot of yardage because just the defense every single time consistently puts him in the position to score. I have Alabama obliterating Ole Miss 62-17 this week.
Okay. And I think that's spot on, Shane. I think, Tua's been ridiculous this year. He's playing with basically an NFL core of wide receivers with Jerry Jeudy, Devontae Smith, Henry Ruggs. I think Ole Miss might get out to a quicker start than people think, but Alabama's just going to do what Alabama does. I got a big win for Alabama in this one.
I also have a big win for Alabama. How can you bet against Alabama? To finish it off, any last thoughts, Shane?
Don't forget Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow for Heisman. I think that the Tigers are going to end up winning the NCAA championship this year, thanks to Joe Burrow.
It's a bold prediction.
Yeah.
And Mizzou fans, keep an eye out for Troy. Mizzou's got a bye week this week. Troy plays Arkansas State. Troy has a history of upsets. They beat LSU at LSU a couple years ago. Big upset there. Last 3 years, 10-plus win seasons. Should be a close one. Keep an eye out for them this week going into Faroe Field next week. Should be a good one.
All right, this has been Tiger Pick 'em on MUTV 23. For JJ Angelo and Shane Palma, I'm Jack McGrath.